I have 6 balls on a soccer field and I need to get all of them across the field. If you do one at a time or a little bit on each one, it's just going to take you 6 times as long than just focusing on one thing.
This podcast is brought to you by NAHB. You know where it all starts. That is the NAHB International Builder Show. Join us February 17th through the 19th in Orlando for the biggest event in residential construction. And here's something special just for our listeners. NAHB is giving us 50 free IBS Expo passes to give our listeners. 1 pass per registration, and they are first come, first serve, so don't wait. Grab yours now at buildersshow.com/moderncraftsman, and we will see you at the show. This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. Let me ask you something. How much money are you leaving on the table because your systems aren't built to scale? I'm talking to the builders already doing $1 million, $2 million, $5 million a year. You're successful, no doubt. But once you hit that mark, the crack starts to show. Too many tools, too many workflows, and way too many manual processes. Buildertrend put together an in-depth ebook on how top contractors choose software that actually drives bigger profits. Not just it saves time or it keeps you organized, but real, measurable profit growth. It breaks down what high-performing builders look for, what traps to avoid, and the systems the best companies rely on. Grab the free ebook at buildertrend.com/MC software guide. If you're serious about scaling this year, start here.
It's also brought to you by Andersen Windows. We all know Andersen is a trusted name for windows and patio doors, but here's something you might not know. They also make impressive moving glass walls called big doors. And these moving glass walls can help you capitalize on indoor-outdoor market, even in rough climate. And what's more impressive is that Andersen also has options for new homes and remodels. Their folding out swing door was recently used in a Michigan remodel where it opened up an entire wall of a 1950s era home. And in Minnesota, their 6-panel multi-glide door brought out the full beauty of a North Shore cabin retreat. These Andersen big doors bring the outdoors in during summer and provide ample views and weather protection in the winter. And with Andersen's proven track record and depth of support and training, installing them is easier than you might think. For more information, head over to andersenwindows.com/moderncraftsman.
This podcast is brought to you by Harnish. First impressions matter, and your crew's appearance speaks volumes. Harnish Workwear helps your brand exude a commanding presence with custom-branded gear that reflects the quality of your craftsmanship. Their H-Label program delivers premium work apparel personalized with your logo, colors, and details. It's more than a uniform, it's a walking representation of your brand. Clean, consistent, and built to perform. If you're ready to elevate your image and stand out from the competition, visit harnishworkwear.com and start building your brand from the ground up.
I hired this girl, Caitlin, as my executive assistant a couple months ago at this point. And I feel like I've said I need an assistant for years now. And my goal with hiring her was to basically offload all of the silly tasks that are on my plate, like day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. And
just have her manage it. And one of the things that we said right from the beginning is like, hey, you are going to manage my inbox. Just because I get like 200 something emails a day and it's like open on one screen and I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, I'll just address it right now. And my calendar. And first off, adding someone to your inbox, I feel like was wildly like personal.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I don't know if I get emails that I want people seeing. Not like inappropriate, just you know, I feel like it's everything that's going on in my life. So it's like, all right, hey, I'm just gonna have you sign an NDA because, you know, I have no idea what you're gonna see, and not that I'm hiding anything, but just, you know, just for the sake of like protecting the information, especially from a business perspective. But today was I think probably the first, like my inbox is literally in my inbox, there's 5 emails, 0 unread. Like everything has been handled.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, and like we cleaned it up, we unsubscribed a bunch of stuff, and then it's my calendar, and she's been really focused on making sure that she basically has 2 calendars on my Google Calendar. Is she's got all these gray boxes, which is the ideal thing I'm doing at that time, based on like everything I have on my plate. Here's how you should structure your day to make sure you get everything done. And then in color on top of that would be, hey, this is what I end up putting in that time block. And I shared a screenshot of my calendar, I think, with the Contractor Coalition group text a couple weeks ago. And I think Kayla or Morgan was like, dude, I do not envy that calendar. And I feel like forever, I mean, myself included, you look at it, it's like, man, look at my week. It's so busy. I got so much shit going on. I'm like, I'm gonna crank through stuff. And then I look at this piece of paper that's sitting next to me right now. It's got 5 things on it that I wanted to get done yesterday. None of them are crossed out. And the reason I wrote them down was because these are going to be priority. Like, I know I have a calendar telling me what I'm doing. I have Asana with all my task management. I got a Google Doc or an Apple Notes saying like, these are the ideas I have and the things I want, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, but I got to write these down because these are priority. Like, these are my biggest, fish to catch. And I don't get any of them done. And I was thinking, I mean, it's no surprise. Like, I think we know that being busy doesn't mean you're being efficient.
Yeah.
And for me, my brain is just always thinking. It's just, I can't. Yesterday I was at the rink with Marley. She was doing a goalie clinic, and I am trying to be present. And I'm watching her, and she's doing great, and I'm supporting her, and like, but I can't just sit there completely like focused on that.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm pulling out my phone and making a quick note, or pulling out my phone and addressing something real quick, or pulling out my phone or getting something checked off my to-do list, because it's just how I've operated. But I said to Caitlin this morning, I was like, hey, forgive my added level of communication here, because I know we Slack and we email and we Asana, each other, but I'm going to send you a voice note. And my voice note is just going to be me walking to go, the 2 blocks to the coffee shop, and the stuff that's on the top of my mind that I just need to address. And it was just kind of what was on, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. But one of the things I kept saying was, I need to be ruthless with my schedule next year, and just my schedule. I don't even want to start next year. Like, as of today, I got to be more ruthless with what I'm saying yes to and what I'm being a part of. Because, I mean, you've said it before, and I recognize, is that I see the potential ROI in everything.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do. And for me, I'm so afraid that I will say no to the thing that would be the most valuable.
Yeah.
Especially recently, I'm just like, I just need to focus. I need to do one thing.
Do you think that doing that's going to, like, is the goal to preserve some of your own headspace and time for things outside of work?
No, it is so I've made this reference before. I have 6 balls on a soccer field, and I need to get all of them across the field. And no matter how you decide, if you do one at a time or a little bit on each one, a few yards for each one, and go back, and it's just going to take you 6 times as long than just focusing on one thing.
Yeah.
That one ball. And I think for me right now, I look at right now on my list, my little notes next to me, the 2 things that I see are the Modern Craftsman and NS Builders.
Yeah.
And without NS Builders, I think my value to Modern Craftsman is diminished because I need that as credibility. Without Modern Craftsman, doesn't really impact NS builders now anymore. I think early on, I think it created a lot of awareness and positioning and like the thought leadership aspect of it. But I think that's been established, and I think that I'm not giving up on Modern Craftsman. But if I were to stop focusing on Modern Craftsman, I don't think it would negatively impact my business as much as if I stopped my business, it would negatively impact Modern Craftsman. But I look at my business and my home building business, and I see us face challenges in terms of the type of projects that we want, the type of clients that we want, what we want to be building, the opportunities that we are presented with and ultimately lose, or the opportunities that we're presented or aren't presented with because we don't have the whatever someone is looking for. And unless I'm fully committed on reacting or responding or pushing the business, I think that when I flip-flop my attention, I think we lose a lot of momentum there. And for me, that is so important to the future of the business that I'm looking at is how do I just head down, focus on this one thing to get us where we need to be. The challenge is a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have said the same thing, and here we are in a completely different position 2 years later. And it's that, obviously moving the goalpost. But the other thing I was thinking about the other day is I also think when I get uncomfortable with anything, I will recognize it, and I will recognize it, but I won't necessarily address it. Where I will pivot my mind. It's like, I know I need to do this hard thing right now, but this over here is pretty low-hanging fruit, so I'm just going to knock a couple of these off my list, and then I'll come back to the hard thing. And that was a big reason why I had Caitlin come in and manage the inbox. For weeks now, like I have not been able to get out of the inbox.
That's I don't even have that much going on in the inboxes. It's gotten to the point where I'll go back and there's emails I need to get to, and I just forward them to myself so that they're back up top of my inbox. Yep.
So we structured it. I got to pull it up because I don't remember what it looks like. Oh, I have one unread email that just came through. But I essentially have them, I have labels now. It's action required, for review, or handled. And basically what that is like action required means I need to get in there and address it. So anything that requires my attention, she moves into that folder. Anything that's in review means, hey, I've already drafted something. I think I can handle this for you. Can you just give me a thumbs up? And then, whatever the third one was, taken care of or handled is, hey, I took care of it. Like, you do not need to respond.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just training myself to only open the folder that says requires my attention.
I feel like you said, the inbox thing is difficult, right? Because that's just personal. Even if it's business, it's personal, right? That's like having somebody answer your phone for you or respond to text message. And it's not that there's things in there that you don't want seen, but it's like if somebody's reaching out to me, I feel like this is somebody directly coordinating or corresponding with me.
And she's not intercepting that. Like if you and I are going back and forth and I'm like, hey, here's the file, and you write back, thank you, she's just like filing that.
Yeah.
Like Nick doesn't need to respond to that. But if it's like, hey, like asking for something, she'd put it into a folder. Like, hey, Nick, Tyler reached out, you gotta follow up with them. But it's been a real, like, it's a lot of training.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. The Julian, it was a couple weeks ago. It was for Veterans Day, and I
from Madagascar.
Yeah, King Julian, the best character in that entire movie. We were talking about taking Veterans Day off or something like that, And I went in his office and I was like, hey, I think we should send out an email to the team letting everyone know that we will take, the Friday after Thanksgiving off. And he looks at me weird. I'm like, what? He goes, I just sent that email like yesterday. And I was like, what? And I went back in my inbox and Caitlin's like, Nick doesn't need to address this. She filed.
Oh.
And I was like, oh man. So I was like, all right, let's make a rule where if it's information that I should know about, maybe it stays there and I'll archive it once I read it. Because that's what I do is I want to be up to speed on everything, all the projects. Like I'm just reading through. But the larger point here is not so much about the monotonous or the emails coming through and like being distracted by it, but it's more about the protection of time and making sure that I'm not drowned by stuff that is just like the whole, hey, this is hard, so I'm going to go chip off a couple easy things and I'll come back to the hard.
Yeah.
Where it's like you just need to do the hard shit first and get that off your plate. And then at the end of the day, go through the emails, go through social media content approvals, things like that, where it's just like it's lower brain power, and get the harder shit done first. And for me, I love thinking in the clouds. I love thinking about process. I was going through my Google Drive the other day. I'm like, I have 100 something workflows in here that are just like, this is how I'd like this part of my business to run. No one in my company has seen them.
But so, like, do you think that that's the difference between being busy and being productive? Like, it feels as though it's almost satisfying the internal dialogue where it's like, okay, I'm making progress on something when it might not be the progress that's needed.
I think it depends on what you're working on. So a couple weeks ago, I built this, like, this is going to sound way more cooler than it is, but this automation where if people emailed us, it would automatically pull their information into a Google Sheet, and depending on how what they filled in on that form, it would then create a task in Asana saying, hey, new lead inquiry, like basically this automated workflow. And it took me hours to do it. And at the end of it, I'm like, this was cool. And I'm like, I appreciate the fact that I spent the time understanding how to quote unquote code that using AI, of course. I'm not going to use this.
Yeah.
But so on one hand, it's like that's just busy work. But on the other hand, I look at it as it is productive because I'm thinking about our process and learning about what is making the process cumbersome, how it can be improved, like how do we make, like what am I actually trying to accomplish here? And that's what I ended up getting to is it's not so much getting into Asana as fast as possible. The reality is we don't have hundreds of leads coming in every day. So for Rachel in my office to handle one phone call and manually enter that into Asana is very low amount of work. It's not something that needs automation where you're getting hundreds of them a day that need to automatically populate somewhere. But it allowed me to understand what was I trying to accomplish, and what I was trying to accomplish is tracking this. So at the end of a week or a month, I knew that for every 100 inquiries we got, one was qualified.
Yeah.
Because then I can turn around to the people that help me with SEO and say, hey, yeah, sure, we're getting thousands of hits on our website. One of them per month is converting to a qualified client, not even a client that we are signing a contract for, just someone that we consider to be a qualified client.
So how do you, like, for me, it's super easy, the scale that I am, but as you grow, how do you understand and rank level of importance with what you have to get done in a day. Like for me, it's super easy. I know the deliverables that have to be done for me to be able to bill out and progress my projects at the scale that I am. And I know what's pressing on the back end. I know when I need to invoice. Like, it's all manageable, and I feel that I can allocate time appropriately based on what's pulling me the strongest. But it rarely feels as though I have so many things pulling me in so many different directions that I'm just frantically just creating busy work. So like as you grow, how do you understand, right? And we have this conversation offline where you're like, I just feel like I have so much shit on my plate right now and nothing's getting done. And we say, like, you have to understand, like, what's the most pressing right now? What's going to solve your biggest problem immediately? Forget about 3 months from now, forget about 6 months from now. How do you gauge and quantify where your time should be spent when you get to the point of feeling that overwhelmed? And like I've had many times in my life that I felt like that, and there's days that I feel like that, but it's not day after day after day. And for me, what usually gets me out of that hump is when I make progress in one area that it feels I'm past the hump, and I can look back and be like, all right, it's downhill from here.
I think for me right now, it's just you said it, what is going to solve the biggest problem that you have? What is the most important thing that solves everything? If you are if you're in business and you're struggling to get work, but you also have projects going on, like, how do you progress on the projects, but you also don't have work? It's like, all right, if you were to zoom out, if you were to stop working on the projects and shifted an entire day to sales, how would that negatively impact you? Because ultimately, I would argue that, yes, you need the cash flow from the projects progressing, but you are going to be completely dried up if you don't get another project in the door. So to me, like, it's, hey, you need to prioritize selling work, slightly over getting work done. So in my position right now, selling white oak is my number one priority.
Yeah.
It is, 2 years of build up to, now we're getting to the end of the project and it's ready to be sold. The faster I sell it, the more successful that project is, and it resolves. It's just, at this point, everything that we have is invested into it. Right? So like now you've invested everything in, and the faster you get that return, the better position you're in. The longer it takes, the lesser return and the more stressful it becomes. So, but for me, I'm sitting down and basically jotting out all the things I need to do. These are the things I'm trying to work on. These are the things I'm trying to solve. And I'll list them high level or with detail. It's like, I really need to hire this person. I need to replace this person. I need to, bring on this consultant. Like, this consultant, I have 5 projects under pre-construction. Like, I promised the client, that I would get him a tier 1 budget put together by next Friday. Like, I try to list all those things out. And that's kind of my hit list. And that's honestly, that's where, like, what I just said, Caitlin is paying attention to, in the sense that when I say, hey, I'll get you a tier 1 budget by next Friday, she hears that and is like, all right, well, here, it's in your calendar, and here's the 4 hours you need to put together that tier 1.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to say it and forget about it.
I think that I keep like an ongoing tally of what I need to get done each and every day. And some of it slips, but for the most part, I try and manage life and business in a way that I can accomplish what I need to. And obviously, at 39 years old, with a wife who works full-time and 2 kids and business and a house and everything else, like, nothing ever gets done. Like, I just don't feel like you ever catch up. But for the most part, I like to be able to manage things where it's like, okay, I'm making progress. I'm at this point where I'm able to concentrate on certain tasks for long enough to feel as though I'm able to, again, get over that hump. And I think when you grow to a certain point and you have your hands in so many things and you still feel that you like it needs Nick's touch, that it feels as though you're just like flailing and trying. You can never put enough effort. Like it feels as though things are divided by 100 rather than being able to spend 20% on this, 20% on that, where I think that when you're able to devote enough time to things rather than just like there's inefficiency when you're bopping from one thing to the next, whether it's a job, whether it's office work, whether it's just your to-do list. You have to be able to, it's like setup and breakdown. Like there's a certain amount of time that it takes to get into one of your to-dos on your to-do list.
Yeah.
And if you can't devote enough time to that, there's so much inefficiency with that busyness that I think people don't realize that. Where it's like, well, I can multitask and I can do this and I can do that, but like it's just like a job. If you can devote a full day to a job rather than 2 hours a day, like if you devote 2 hours a day to a job, it's going to take you 5 days to get that 8 hours worth of work done, because the setup, the breakdown, the driving there, getting back into it, remembering what you need and everything else, where it's like, if you were just able to devote one full day to that, you would gain 20% efficiency. And like, so that's where I structure my life and my business to try and create, and I have to, because I can't put that much work in place to create those efficiencies where I'm not setting up and breaking down, where I can actually plant myself and spend the time on something. Like and I think that you do this better than me, but there's still issues and inefficiencies with it where it's like you have so many things going on and too many eggs in all these different baskets.
Yeah.
I've just always found it. That's why I try and do one job at a time. That's why, I don't try and bite off more than I can chew. I've just found that for me, the numbers might be bigger, but the efficiency comes way down, and then the profitability comes way down on that. And like, I don't want to live in that middle ground of, I'm doing more, but I'm also spending more, and there's inefficiencies that I can't capture because I'm kind of capped out at what I can charge clients for work. Like, I understand what the going rate is and the type of work that I'm doing and all of that stuff. So I think that there's a big difference there, and people don't realize when they get that busy how much inefficiency there is in picking up and putting down and just like getting yourself back into whatever task you were working on before.
Well, going back to your comment about being busy or being productive, I think about specifically pre-construction and pricing work. And I shared this before, but we had priced this job a couple weeks ago, and we were $5 million. Like, and for anyone that isn't part of the Modern Craftsman newsletter, this is the stuff I share in the newsletter. Sign up, moderncraftsman.co. But price this job, I spend all this time putting together this proposal, and it was a tier 1, so it's typically a day's worth of work, but really good opportunity, really good job, like the type of project we want to build in the area that we want to build, and even discussed a high level, like this is what it's going to roughly cost a square foot. And so everyone's on the same page, and I put all this work into it, and I price it, and then we're $2 million more than he wants to be. Yeah. Even though our cost per square foot was right on, he didn't realize that his house was that big. So I beat myself up, and I'm like, man, like that was what a waste of time. But then you can flip that and be like, well, maybe it's not a waste of time. Maybe, and in this case, like we got very lucky, whatever, like happenstance that another client in that same area wanted to build a very similar house. And I was like, here's what that pricing looks like. And he's like, oh man, this is super helpful. And that's like a more valid, more valid client, understands the cost and wants to keep the conversation going. But I guess for me, like one of the conversations I've had with King Julian is my time better spent, selling pre-construction on projects that might be a smaller budget, or spending that equal amount of time and going to find a job that does fit our budget. And this is any, business owner can relate to this, where it's, well, you almost, when you're hungry, you're going to go after everything, right? You're going to fill your pipeline, but if you're filling your pipeline with things that are the type of projects that you're familiar with or doing today, but you really want to be somewhere else in business, how do you ever get there if you never allow yourself to get out of the lane that you're in?
And I think so that's something that I speak to a lot of consulting clients about, where like they want to be doing different work and their business just isn't in the position that they are there yet, or they have the marketing, or they have the portfolio behind that, and they want to get there, but they don't know how to get there. And like, you have to position your business, and your business has to be in a place where you can afford to say no to projects. And it's difficult the bigger you are, and that's one of the downsides, right? You need to keep work to keep the lights on. So there needs to be the jobs that pay the overhead, that keep the lights of the business on, and then there needs to be the jobs that pay the bills. And you look at it like a landscaper, right? They have the lawns that they mow, and that keeps the overhead, that gets everyone their hours that they need, and then they make money on the hardscape type of projects, or the renovation type of projects. But like, you almost need that, or you need the experience, or you need the capital. You can't be that far over your skis to be able to afford to say no to a project to take the job that's right for you. And so what ends up happening, what I tell people all the time, it's so much easier said than done. And people told me this, and it was so hard when I first started out. But you're so much better off saying no to a project and giving up that money, giving up that however much time it is in work, to be able to focus on the projects that make sense to you and your business. Because if you do that project, now it's going to consume a certain portion of your bandwidth, a certain portion of your resources, and it's all going towards a project that's not what you want to be doing. It's probably not making the margins that you want. And then all the referrals and the marketing that's going to come from that is not the type of jobs that you want. So it's right. Like, if you had built your business, or you remained in a size or a scale that affords you an opportunity to say no to certain jobs where you're not that hungry, you're actually going to grow to where you need to be, or where you want to be, much faster, because all the jobs that you're taking are moving you towards where you want to be instead of prolonging where you are. And like, I think that a lot of us get stuck taking projects that prolong where we are and exacerbate the existing conditions that we have in business, because we're so afraid of work drying up, or when the next paycheck's going to come. Where if you were just like, you know what, I'm going to say no to work for 6 months, and I'm going to spend that time and those resources on marketing and building my business to be the type of business that I want, your growth would be substantial, and it would be in the direction that you need it to be, rather than just like floundering with the work that's on your plate, and now you can't give 100% of your focus towards where you want to be. It's really easier said than done, and you need to either have capital on hand, or you need to be able to really control your overhead to be able to do that. And I think that most people can't, and that happens so early on when we start business, and we're so afraid that work's going to dry up and where the next paycheck's going to come from, that I think we continue to do that job after job and year after year. And it's like, nothing ever changes if nothing changes.
Yeah. It's funny. I was, going back and forth, going back to how I find focus, or what my hot items are. I also will sit, brain dump into AI and just be like, this is everything that's going on. Like, can you help me make sense of it. That's like, that is probably my number one use case for AI, where it's just like, hey, this is everything I have going on. I'm having a hard time prioritizing it. Can you help me think about this more strategically? And it's like, okay, well, based on your position, like, these are the things that seem to be the most pressing, or will pay off the biggest. Like, these are the most difficult things, or this is the, if you solve this, everything else gets solved, right? Yeah. So recently, in one of these exercises, I, was kind of saying, this is my goal. This is my 12-month and my 36-month goal. And here's where we're at today in comparison.
So also, just for people to know, realistically, Nick, you're thinking about something completely different while having a conversation with me that just made you blank out. Something was like, oh, I need to do this for work right now.
No. You're what you said about being able to, yeah, there's probably that too. I clearly have ADD, but you had said how, like, having the ability to say no to a project, or be able to be in a spot. If you keep doing the same thing, how are you ever going to do the next thing? Mm-hmm. But in this conversation, or in this kind of back and forth of like, here's what's going on, this is what I'm trying to do, it said just that. It's like, Nick, you're continuing to sign up work or go after projects that fit the demographic of what you do today or have done in the past, not what you want to be doing tomorrow. And I think anyone can relate to that, where it's like, well, I have to feed the machine. I have to keep the business going. I have all these people. You're exactly right. Where it's, if you don't have the financial means to go after the next thing, because the current thing can't survive without without knowing that you'll get the next thing.
Yeah.
It's such a slow climb, and it is just like complete happenstance, when it finally happens, when it finally clicks. So such a small percentage goes into trying to get the next big job or the next tier of work, because most of your effort is surviving.
Sure.
And I had a conversation with a big builder that is in multiple states around the country, and does, not even $10 million plus homes. Like, multiples of tens of millions of dollars, insane residences. And I chatted with him about this, and I was like, I'm struggling to understand how we break the mold of who we are in my market. We're in Boston. We have great builders. We constantly lose work to the 5 or 6 big builders. And it's because they associate us being in business for 10 years, 11 years as higher risk than the guy that has been doing it for 40, 50 years. And sure, maybe there's a chip on my shoulder where it's like, we can do it better, or our process is better, but it doesn't matter. Like, unless I can communicate that super clear to a buyer, they're always going to associate risk in what they understand, and what they understand is experience, and experience is typically immediately tied to how much time someone has been doing it.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him, and I said, I know how I've seen your path in business. He's probably 2 generations ahead, so he's an older gentleman. But he was in the same exact position I was when, and actually doing smaller projects than I'm doing today when he was my age. And I was like, well, respectfully, I don't want to wait until I'm older to have this chance. What was it? Everyone wants to know, like, right? What was the one thing? What's the thing that you did so I can just go do it now? And he ultimately said, I took a risk. I invested in the business, and specifically I invested into one project. And now a handful of builders that I know have all told me the same advice. Is they looked at one project, they were like, man, this is what I want to be doing, and I have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
So before I just go in and be another Apple that he's going to compare it to the other Apple that's looking at the project. How do I differentiate myself? And from a financial position, it's like, if you are the guy, and this is the hard thing for me to say and to promote, is that I'm the guy that's got 10 years experience. The other guys the other guy or the other guys or gals have 40 years of experience. If I go in at the same, say we're all the same price, he does not see the value in giving us, quote unquote, a chance, because we're younger. And not every client feels this way, but a lot of clients, in my experience, do. Where it's like, oh, I thought you'd be the guy that's cheaper. And I was sharing this with the builder I was on the phone with, and he said, I was in that exact position, and I looked at the client and I said, listen, I'm not going to give you a discount per se, but I am going to reduce my fee, and that is my investment into my business. I'm not spending money on marketing. Instead, I'm going to invest in my business by reducing my fee on this project, and I want you to give me a shot because I know I can do this project. And if I fail or you see me slipping at any point, fire me immediately.
Yeah.
And he tells a story, and he did it. It was successful, and that's where he broke the mold.
Yeah.
And another local builder, told me the same thing. I asked him the same question. He goes, oh yeah, I'll never forget. They basically told me they were going to go with the guy that's been in business longer than me. And I asked the client, I said, if I do this at a discounted fee, as me investing into my business and the future of my business, how about this? Give me a shot. If I fail, fire me, and I will stay on as a rep to make sure that the project continues to go smoothly for I think he said it for pro bono. Like, I will stay involved because I'm doing all this work and prep, but you can fire me, hire the guy that you were planning on hiring. And same thing. He said, I did it. I made sure everything went into it. It went effortlessly. And I came out, and our whole future of our business was the moment it changed for us.
Do you think that you have to be, did you ask these guys what type of financial position they were in at that point to be able to take that risk?
I didn't ask that question specifically, but I remember the first gentleman told me, he was like, I sat down and I looked at my finances, and I basically said, I have enough going on of the typical projects that I'm covering my overhead. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have to work, like my business will sustain, I might not make a profit, but I am covering the expense of the business. So when I took on this project, even if I didn't make enough money to cover my overhead's already covered.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to understand. And I feel that these stories, you either have to be in a position where you can make this work. And yeah, maybe you have enough that it doesn't affect you at all. Or maybe you're in the position where it's like, I have enough going on. Like I said, the lawn care aspect of a landscaping business, where it's like, I can keep all my people on payroll. I can cover the overhead, my shop, my vehicles, all my equipment, everything will keep going. I'm just going to focus on something that's bigger than me right now. Or you're in a position where you're like, there's nothing left. I'm all in at this point, right? Like, you hear that story all the time where I'm going to try this one last thing. And if not, I'm going a different route.
You ever hear the story about the guy from FedEx?
No.
By the way? Finish your thought.
But to me, that they're obviously two very polarizing situations and scenarios. Either can work. I'm going to be of the mindset where it's like, I'd rather have enough capital on board where I can take a risk and feel that it's not as risky.
Am I the other guy? Am I the guy?
Yeah, you're definitely
I'm the Hail Mary guy?
I mean, I don't think it necessarily has to be a Hail Mary. I just think that your risk aversion is completely different than mine.
So here's I'm going to I'll summarize this. In 1974, FedEx was struggling with debt, facing a severe cash crunch, and they needed $24,000 for jet fuel, and they only had $5,000 in the bank. This is FedEx. $5,000 in the bank.
When did they start as a company? Do you know?
I don't. But
19.
the after a failed business meeting, Smith, who Fred Smith was the founder, decided to detour to Las Vegas, and he took his company's remaining $5,000, putting it on the blackjack table, and he won $27,000, enough to cover the fuel bill and keep the planes flying. And then obviously later on built, the winnings brought FedEx crucial time to secure over 11 million in new funding, ultimately saving the company.
Yeah, they looks like they started in 71, 73, so it was like shortly thereafter.
That like, imagine.
Dude definitely had a gambling problem. If that's the position you're in, you're like, screw it, detour, let's hit Vegas.
He's just like, I got $5,000 left. I owe the planes $27,000, like, or 24,000.
Makes for a good story.
I know, but that's a great example of just like the last Hail Mary.
Yeah, I mean, desperation, right? That's what happens. I'm just not the type where I want to get to the point of desperation. If I'm at the point of desperation, I'm not in good shape.
What would you have done?
In that position,
you got $5,000. You owe someone $24,000.
I would always like to think that I've done enough right by people in life and in business that I'd be able to go to somebody to be able to help me out financially.
Yeah.
Not like a freebie, but
no.
And it's always like, I mean, people ask me all the time, right? You're a belt-on contractor. What happens if you get hurt, if you can't work anymore? And I'd like to think that I created a business and a model and enough relationships in this industry that I'd be able to pick up within the industry, not doing what I'm doing now, and survive. So I think I'm probably under that mindset. It'd be hard pressed to say I'm going to give up. Like, I'm not one to give up at all. I think I'd have to turn to other people to try and find ways to dig out of that. Like, I don't know. I think that when you get to that point, digging out yourself, although probably fulfilling when it works, can sometimes be a dead end road.
Yeah.
Where it's like you have to look to others to give you a hand, or people that you've helped out. I think ultimately it comes down to community and relationships in life and in business. I think that's probably the best bet, rather than like going to a bank or going to a financier, right? Or Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've also never gambled in my entire life, like not even a slot machine. So
zero ever?
Zero, never. No.
Oh man, that's crazy.
I have like zero interest.
I don't have any interest. I'll tell you a short story. The first time I ever went to Vegas was for the Builder Show when I was in college.
Same.
And we went for the VICA competition. Most schools apparently only sent the people that were competing. Our school sent 30 of us.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving, and my dad handed me $100, and he said, "Hey, put this on black, and if it hits, put it on black again, and if it hits again, turn it to red, and then if it hits again, turn it to black." And I was like, all right, I don't know what that means, but I'll figure it out. And we were leaving, and we walked by the roulette table, and I see them playing. I'm like, oh, 100 on black. And the guy's like, oh, okay, buddy, here's your chips. I put it on black. I hit. I get $200. And I'm like, $200 on black. And he's like, okay. I hit again. Now I'm $400. 400 on red. I hit again. Now I'm at $800. I'm in college. Like, this is like a ton of money. And all my buddies are now standing next to me. I'm like, 800 on black. And it hits red. And I'm like, thanks. And I walk away. And my buddy's like, you just lost $800. I'm like, no, my dad lost $100.
Yeah.
I was like, I did exactly as he told me to do. But yeah, I mean, after that, like, I mean, we've been to the casino, like playing blackjack here and there, but it's not something I get into. It's like, it's kind of, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah, I don't even know
something
how to
to
play
do.
cards. Like all my friends growing up playing poker and stuff. I know how to play War and Go Fish. That's about it.
Those are good with the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, in high school, I remember poker being huge in high school, and I'll never forget. We'd play in between periods,
Hmm.
and I was terrible, but I took a deck and I rigged the whole deck once. So when I shuffled it, like I kept all the playing cards like above the fold, and I would kept cutting it, and I dealt out the cards, and whatever. I don't remember like the ranking, but all I know is I remember the kid that was like nasty at it had like an amazing hand, and I had just four aces,
Yeah.
and he's like, how? And I was like, I rigged the deck. And he was so excited. And then he was obviously incredibly pissed off. Um,
Yeah, I've never been my thing.
no, I guess I'm gambling in other ways.
For me, I look at what I can tackle every single day and what I have to do. And for my jobs, it's fairly easy. I keep basically a running notes of what I need to do for every job, right? To close out a job. I just have a list of what I need to do to punch out that job. I also maintain a calendar, and then I use reminders in my phone for things that are more pressing that may not be top of mind, right? I have a meeting with somebody this day where it's like I have that in my calendar, but I know I'm going to be on the job swinging a hammer. I also need to be reminded of that. Like, what are there systems that you use? I know that you have people on board that are helping you with that, but just to ensure that you are maintaining what you need to do every single day.
Yeah, what I have right now is we use Asana for task management, which every single thing that I need to do gets put in there.
Yeah.
And Caitlin's great because I will record every meeting, and then she goes and pulls all the meeting notes, and anything I said I would do will get dumped into the appropriate project,
Yeah.
which is awesome. What I am finding out is that I have a little bit too much automation in that. So last week I spent a handful of hours getting a bunch of outbound or outreach for 45 White Oak showings. And every time I did that, it would set an automation to follow up with them 48 hours. And then I woke up one day and I had literally 40 to-dos, like follow up with this person, follow up with this person. I'm like, all right, that isn't helpful. So it's like tweaking those things. But in in all the years I've been in business, the most productive thing has been a to-do list, and that I can physically cross off.
Yeah.
And I love Asana. I love these apps that you can just go in and track this stuff and monitor and see. But there's nothing like having it written out, or even just Apple Notes with the check boxes that I'm just like, check, check, check.
Dude, that's
check,
what I
check.
use all the time for jobs, for everything I have to do, where I just go in. It's like, it's just so simple.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take me time, and I always have it with me. I love when I'm working from home, it's a notepad, right? I'm at my computer all day, and I have the notepad. This is what I want to get done in the day, and I start checking it off. But on a day-to-day basis, just the notes in my phone, where it's like a running list. I would love to be able to find a way, even for my email inbox, it would be nice if I could almost rate things in level of importance, where it's not just a gut check or how long it's going to take. Because sometimes I find myself just being like, this is the lowest barrier to entry or lowest barrier to completion. So it looks as though I got a lot done, but now all that's left are the things that actually require time. Yeah. So there's no rhyme or reason a lot of times other than I know I can get to this quickly. But then also when I'm at home and it's the notepad and that visceral list of what you need to do and the feeling of crossing it off and making progress, I think it is very rewarding. And to me, like, that and the notes are the way to go. Even like punch list for my jobs, right? Nobody else needs to see my punch list. I can share that with them, but just a shared document as far as what needs to get done. And there's no rhyme or reason to that. but it's just like whenever I need something little to do, or whenever I'm closing at a job, or like there's something on my notes list from the start of this job. So there was a hose bib that I went to use their hose and it was leaking. Like it would, you'd turn it on and it would just blow out of everywhere, including the nozzle of the actual spigot that was coming through the wall. So I was like, I'll just replace their frost-free. And I replaced it, and I went to go put the screws in, and whoever put it in last time just blew out like all the brick around it. So on my to-do list is to cut that, pull it back out, and put some actual anchors in there, because I've tried to anchor it, and I'm like, one of these screws is going to go off the anchor and just go into my pipe. So it's been on my to-do list for this job that I have my plumbing stuff there. I have everything I need to do it, but it's not done. But I put that on my to-do list for this job in like October. And it's still on there, and I'll get it done. It'll be one of my punch things. But for me, it's just so simple of what I need to do. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 things left to do on the job. Some will get done in spring, like topsoil and seed, and then there's some that I'll cross off in the next couple of days. But I mean, even the other day, she's like, are you still taking all this stuff to the dump? I have some like swings in the backyard and a slack line that I'm not using that I can throw out. And like she tells me that, I immediately go onto my phone, and that's on my punch list. So when I go to leave that job, I will not forget to pull down that slack line and the swings and throw them in my dumpster, because if not, I 100% will forget that.
Yeah.
Like you just told me that 100% is gone 2 seconds later if I don't put that in my notes on my phone.
It's that and ideas. And I read something last week about ideas, and they specifically were specifically talking about how they put them in Apple Notes, and then they review them like a day or week later. And if it's still a good idea, they'll keep it there.
Yeah.
But if it's like, oh, that's actually stupid, because everyone has like these great ideas, like it's this euphoric thought process and it feels great, and then the next day you look at it like, that's kind of stupid.
Yeah, it's kind of shitty.
So and they would delete it. But it's your comment about how important it is interesting, and I don't want this to be about software and promoting things, but I use this app, and I think it was called In Motion or something like that. It was like an AI app, and what it would do is essentially it's like a virtual assistant where all quote unquote, all you would do is you go in there, you'd link your calendar, and then you would populate your to-do list, and then you could either just put the to-do list, or it would ask you, how long is this going to take? How, like, is this a 1, 2, or 3 in terms of like levels of priority? Are you traveling to it? And if so, how much travel time do you need? Like, it would just ask you enough questions. And what it would do is it would then look at your calendar and it would plug it in. So if you had an hour between meetings and there was this task that you could knock out, it would say, hey, why don't you get this done? And if you don't physically click off saying you got it done, it would just automatically be like, all right, he didn't get it done. I'll just move it to a different time. And I love that, because it was always like, hey, I have these time slots, and it would automatically move it if I'm just ignoring it because I'm doing something else. But I was like, but the problem is I don't have the time to sit down and populate all these things. I'm like spitting out information or agreeing to a tier 1 estimate on Friday via email or via Slack message or in a meeting on Zoom. For me to go and then, remind myself that I would do this, was the issue. Like, that's the issue, not finding time to do it. And as I say this out loud, I'm sure people are listening like, Nick, you just have too much shit going on. Like, you don't need an assistant to tell you when to do things. Just stop doing so much. I agree. Like, I'm with you. When I hired Caitlin, I listened to this open residency podcast, and it was, I forget what he was the founder of, but he was a big founder. And one of the questions the host asked was, or this guy, Mark, the host, he said, "Do you have an executive assistant?" He goes, "No." He goes, "No one needs an executive assistant." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Son of a bitch! I just hired one. This guy's telling me I don't need one." But he was like, "No, I know what my priorities are, and I know that my time, like what I'm going to be focused on. And if it's a priority, like if I'm not responding to an email or not getting, then it's just not a priority for me."
Yeah.
And he's in a different, like, this guy's made hundreds of millions of dollars and like just at this point a different tier, and not, I don't think he was as involved in his business anymore. But I mean, there's some truth to that where it's like, yeah, I probably don't need any tools. I could probably just work in the Apple Notes app, and it's more this like ego driven side of me where I just want to get more shit done and like move the balls across the field and do it with you, and do it with the King Julian, and do it with Ken, and do it with Doug, and do it with brand partnerships and the like I want us to all like move across the field in this big like group.
I think the big difference, and I want our listeners to fully understand this, is that if you're taking on more shit, if you're adding more to it, if you're looking elsewhere or looking inward to be able to bring on software, create efficiencies within your business, just do more, it needs to be for the sake of expanding your business, making you more money, or growing your business. It can't just be to keep your head above water and do more shit. Like we're all conditioned to just cram more into each day, whether it's in business, like as you were saying, you want a executive assistant. It's like, my wife could use like a house assistant, right? Like all we're doing every single day between work and kids and life and business and extracurriculars for school and sports is just cram more into each day. But at what cost and for what, right? Like if you want to be doing that much more for work, it needs to be that you're making considerably more money doing it. It can't just be that you're trying to catch up or just keep your head above water. And
even, let me just push back, even the considerably more money making it worth it. It's not that I don't agree with that. It's that even in those moments, you know, you and I have been awarded opportunities working with brands and short-term content. Like there's that side of what we do in business now, which sometimes can be very lucrative for a very short period of time.
yeah,
But there's also the part that I think, at least for me, that I still question is that, okay, I get paid a lot of money to do this thing that won't take me that long, but would my time be more valuable on focusing on the bigger thing? And for me, it's the building, right? Like selling a big job, where it's sure that influx of cash in the very moment is amazing and it feels great, but is it negatively impacting something else? And I don't think it always is, but I think that there's certainly times where I'm like, that took too much of my time, even though I got paid well, that I could have been doing something for the bigger picture. And I was so focused on the micro benefit.
and I don't disagree with it. I just think that, like, especially the past since COVID, and like, I mean, my perspective of being an adult and having a family is only during the span of the past 12 years that I've been in this position. But it just seems, especially seeing my parents' generation, that we are always looking for ways to be able to cram more shit into the same bag. And for what? Like, are we living a better lifestyle than the last generation did? It's just, it seems that we're giving more, we're conceding more, and it's costing us more to have a lifestyle that may not be as wholesome as past generations. And like, I don't think that you should have to do $10 million worth of work in residential construction to have a decent lifestyle.
Right.
And like, that's what it's trending towards, and that's what everyone thinks. And for me, it's like, start questioning why you're looking to do more. Are there flaws within your business model? Is it your market? Is it your numbers? Is it the way that you're marketing your business? Are you just in an area where the type of work that you're doing isn't quite as valuable as elsewhere? Like, start asking those questions rather than just like, how can I do more? How can I do more? Because realistically, like, we can only all do so much, and what's it all worth? And I think that, like, as everyone's just like, you can use AI to get more work done a day, and it's like, but we're not making more money. You're not retiring earlier. Like, you're just pushing the boundaries of what can be done, and ultimately that just makes life harder for all of us, where it's like, that's the baseline now. If you can't do $10 million worth of work, like, you're nobody, your business is nobody. And I don't necessarily think that that's the answer. So it's to me, it's questioning, why are you using all of these systems, and is it rewarding you with some sort of lifestyle change, financial, personal, whatever it may. Like, if you want to use this software to create an extra 12 hours of freedom in your life, great, but don't just do it to keep up with the Joneses. Like, that's the big issue that I have. Like, we're all doing more for the sake of just life being more chaotic. And, like, is that the answer?
I think your point on AI is a great one to kind of wrap that conversation up, because it is this tool that, you know, kind of exudes efficiency and talks and basically, this is how you can be more efficient. This is how you can get more done. This is how you can 10x your output. But for what? If you know, are you really improving your business? Are you really improving your life? Or are you just cramming more shit into the same bag
and giving more shit away for free?
Yeah.
But, like, now there's an expectation of that with everyone, because you now have this tool that offers that ability where you can get done more for less, where it's like, no, let's get done more for more. So
let's talk about AI in a future episode, like just AI, because I think AI, there's so many questions around it, how people are using it, but I think we should dig into that, you know, even how you and I are using it, our thoughts on it, and really expand on that comment you just made.
Sure.
Well, next time. See you guys.
All right, guys and girls.
Yeah.
I think we have a couple more episodes before Christmas, but we're coming up on that time, year end. I think there's a lot to talk about, and a lot of stressors and people closing jobs out. So hang in there. Keep your head up. You can always wait till next year, too.
That is true. But like, if you're listening to this on Spotify, you probably got a Spotify Wrapped. And hopefully Modern Craftsman was your top podcast in that Spotify Wrapped. However, I just got an Uber Wrapped. Like, basically Uber was like, hey, we're wrapping up your 2025. See your stats. And for a fun fact, I ordered from 41 different restaurants on Uber Eats this year.
Damn. I'm at 0.
And my go-to number one meal is a breakfast sandwich. So apparently I Uber eat breakfast far too much. But yeah, we'll do a year-end wrap for Modern Craftsman and chat about 2025 and what we get planned for 2026. As always, guys, moderncraftsman.co. Sign up for the newsletter. That's where you're gonna get all the goodies and the benefits. We'll see you guys next week.